So we went for it. Time to scale the art to the world, okay? And this was right around mid-2000s, mid to late 2000s, and we realized that we were very fortunate, A, to have an art that was growing in demand, and B, to have a skill set and a structure of that art that was so proven in a brick and mortar school that let's take it to the world, and no better way than through the internet, right? And that's when we launched Gracie University, 2008, 2009. We threw up the curriculum, we put it online, linear online curriculums from A to Z. Now, what was different about Gracie University back then, and still to this day, is that we didn't just say, okay, let's show a bunch of chokes, some complementary material online for brick and mortar students. We had only one question. If we were gonna teach someone from A to Z, from white to black belt, every single day, private classes, what would be the order that we would teach Jiu-Jitsu to them in? And let's record it in that order and then put it online, compounding in that fashion, so that someone who gets on this path and then works through it linearly, right, could accomplish the same results that someone would get in private classes with us. So we went for it because we knew there were people all over the world who wanted to have access to Jiu-Jitsu, but for their life couldn't have access to a proper school. So this would be a service to them as much as anyone else who wanted to learn our system. So we put it online. We did this for Gracie Combatives. We did it for Gracie Bully Proof, Kids Program A to Z, Women Empowered, and then Master Cycle as well, which then went underway soon after that and is still being wrapped up. The final purple and brown belt chapters here on Master Cycle are almost finished and about to be released. So we went for it, you guys. And fair to say, it worked, right? There was a fair amount of criticism because martial arts is very traditional, and it was not a very traditional approach to martial arts, and there was a lot of skepticism whether you could even learn online at all. But it absolutely worked, and you know, now we're way past 200,000 students, active students, in 196 countries, and I just checked this morning, and because of the closure right now and the lockdown, we had, in the last 10 days, we had 10,481 new members join Gracie University in 10 days. That's over 1,000 people a day, which is 1,000%, right? We usually get about 80 to 100 new members a day. We're at over 1,000 a day for the last 10 days because of coronavirus, people being locked down and wanting to learn online, and knowing that our program is designed specifically for that from A to Z. And these are a lot of students who have never trained anywhere, but more often than not, they're people who train at BJJ schools, and right now their schools are closed, and they're just looking for some type of progression since most BJJ schools don't have an accompanying online curriculum from start to finish that someone can go through. So it's been growing tremendously. But since its inception, Gracie University, there was always one challenge. People need training partners, right? They need someone to work with, and you can only watch so many videos and make so much progress by yourself. And we never advocated that anyone do the whole thing just by watching the videos. And some people try to misconstrue that and say, yeah, how could you learn from watching videos? You learn a lot from watching videos, but you build muscle memory and reflexes from training with partners. So what happened is we created a student database on Gracie University where people can click on members and do a search within 10 miles. I want to find all the people who are, you know, white and blue belts or higher, or what, you can narrow it down however you want. And I want to train with these people, and then it shows you 47 people within 10 miles of your house who you can network with and contact through the site and train jiu-jitsu with at your house or at their house. That went great. But then we realized there's regular online GU students and there's super students. And there were some people who had the mats and the curriculum and all the gis and all that. They were just so fired up about this that we created a new classification called Gracie Garages. And these are unofficial at-home training centers where someone has mats and high level of dedication, and they really want to keep going. And here's an example of a Gracie Garage in Orlando, Florida, James Beeger. And he's been doing great work over there, and the community gets together. But check this out. So we're here in front of James's house. Amazing guy. I've actually taught a seminar in this Gracie garage recently. This is an older video, and his garage is much bigger now. He moved houses. But look at this, you guys. Curriculum, he has the mats, he has the curriculum on there, the Grandmaster Eddie Gracie poster on the wall. I mean, this is an unprecedented level of dedication for someone to commit their house or a bedroom to being a Gracie garage. And then the community gets together, adults, kids, they go and they work together and they make it happen, you guys. And this is happening all over the hundreds and hundreds of Gracie garage in the US alone and internationally. So we're super excited. We're reaching people, they're learning from home, everything's going great. And then what happens? We realize that putting out Gracie University is great. Putting out information was great. The only thing better than putting out incredibly valuable self-defense information is creating a system through which people who learn that information could be verified in their execution of this technique and these reflexes and the techniques that you're putting out, right? Because every other BJJ, whether it's DVD or online, they put out the information and it's one-way communication from the source to the potential student. And that's great, motivational, but there's no responsibility on behalf of the teacher at that point. They're free of all responsibility to verify that what they're putting out is actually being retained and regurgitated and effectively employed or deployed by the student there. So we went for it. We created the video evaluation process, which initially was subject to quite a bit of scrutiny, but man, the results just speak for themselves. It's so ridiculous, you guys. We have students all over the world through the video evaluation process. The way it works is once you complete a certain segment of the curriculum, Gracie Combatives from A to Z, you then take a test. You do the test, the same test you would do in person. You do it wherever you are on video. You record the video of your performance. 25 minutes of Gracie Combatives, 5 different videos, mount, side mount, standing, guard. You put all those online, freestyle flow drill where you show us the connectivity of all the techniques. And then what happens is, yes, thank you. What happens is, at that point, we have students all over the world who are doing this via video, and these guys are sending in the results, you guys. It's happening. And people who would never have access. There's a guy in Lagos, Nigeria. Uke Wokedi is his name. And he's not 2,000 miles from the nearest BJJ anything. Forget CTC, just anything. And Uke logged on, dedicated for over a year with his cousin. They practiced, and they went and they moved the bed aside in their room and they put floor mats, they taped it together with duct tape, and they did Jiu-Jitsu, Gracie Combatives on the floor in the, and now listen, in his house out in Lagos, Nigeria. And Uke is a border patrol agent in Lagos. So he's like a federal officer there working out of his home on the floor with the mats, falling in love with Gracie Combatives. And he went for a year plus, and then he sent us this. This is Uke's Gracie Combatives test, you guys. Now it's hard to see, but those are duct tape foam mats on the floor, the puzzle mats, and he's doing a perfectly applied triangle. And right here, his partner, his cousin, swimming in, is turning, armbar from the guard, locking it up, triangle transition from the armbar. Look at that, blocking punches, redirecting and going, and they're going through the techniques. And this part is just the guard drill, slow motion. And best of all is over here, you can actually see the deductions that were made by the evaluators. Every test is looked at by 2 evaluators. At 124, he had incorrect arm work in the video. At 336, insufficient timing and distance control. You guys, listen, what do you think Uke does with this information once he gets it? He goes back to the source material, the videos, he watches them with his deduction notes, he makes the corrections, and he gets better from Lagos, Nigeria. This is happening all over the world, friends. And for people like this who don't have any other access, this is not just an acceptable way, it's not just the best way, it's actually the everything way. And he's making real progress in Jiu-Jitsu. Now what's crazy is, as you can see here, here's the instructor, the initial evaluator, here's the admin deductions. So 2 people give their score, and the final average there was 3 deductions. So he scored 97 on his Gracie Combatives test from Lagos, Nigeria. This is it, you guys. Once we're seeing things like this, we know that people like this, and then they advance. Once he completes this, goes into Master Cycle, starts the BBS1 curriculum, practice, sparring, and then later he'll have a chance to test for his actual blue belt at a certified training center here in Torrance at Gracie University headquarters. But he just continues through the curriculum on his own until he meets us for the big milestone official belt promotions, which are going to go down. So he passes with a 97 or higher, 97 score, which is exceptionally high. The passing grade is 90. 95 or higher, 97 or higher is exceptional. So he does that, and guess what? This is what gives us the confidence, not just him, but everyone who's doing this, that it's finally time to essentially certify other instructors outside of Torrance to be part of this process of growing Jiu-Jitsu all over the world. So we created the Instructor Certification Program, where people all over the world can learn our systems and then effectively open schools, certified training centers. And we're going to go deep into the actual Instructor Certification Program after Phase 3 discussion. and we're going to go into the business aspect of it, opening the CTC, opening your own martial arts school, the fees. We're going to talk about the business mastery course, so many other things we're going to talk about in a second, including Instructor Certification Program and how deep we're going to go. But first, I want you to see for a snapshot here what happens once you complete the ICP and you become a certified training center, right? You become and one of the prerequisites, amongst others, is to complete the Gracie Combatives test with a score of 95 or higher. And then carry on to the master cycle, advance your skill set, continue sparring and sharpening that sword of jiu-jitsu, earn your blue belt, and then at that point, you can come do the ICP here in Torrance. So what happens is, CTCs, if you look right here, all the green dots are certified training centers. And the way it breaks down is there are 4 levels of certified training centers, and Level 1, Level 2, Level 3, and Level 4. When you complete the ICP at Level 1, you're qualified to teach Gracie Combatives and Gracie Bully Proof because you're still relatively new in Jiu-Jitsu. 1 to 2 years of training, you're solid in some basics, right? But you're not anything black belt, you're just a blue belt who's trying to help other people learn Jiu-Jitsu, so that's Level 1. And there's no ambiguity about that. It's on the website. There's no one saying anything other than what it is. And what's crazy is if you look here, 80% of all CTCs at any given time are under purple belt, which means they're owned and operated by blue belts. This is remarkable, you guys, and they're successful at what they do. And the reason this is possible is because they're not making anything up. They're following the exact system, exact structure, exact card, exact calendar. Everything is turnkey and dialed in for them, and they're helping nurture new jiu-jitsu journeys as a blue belt at these CTCs all over the world. Now, the reason why it works, now you might say, well, Henner, that blue belt, you put him out there to teach. How do you know he's even doing it right? That's a fair question. How do you even know that some blue belt in the middle of whoever is teaching jiu-jitsu and doing it correctly? The answer is this. We have a closed circle verification process. When a student at one of these CTCs is ready to test for their combatives belt, let's just say Gracie Combatives belt, the instructor there will administer the test on their own student. And then at that point, they do the whole thing. The instructor is the attacker. Boom, 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 putting pressure on them, right? The whole thing, 25, 30-minute test. They have a video recording the whole time. So they're watching the entire thing. They record the entire thing, the test. The instructor uploads that test to Gracie University for Gracie Combatives, and they issue a verdict. They say, hey, Henner from CTC so-and-so, and this one right here, we recommend for promotion. We recommend him at a score of 93. And here are the 7 deductions I made as the blue belt instructor who's assessing our Gracie Combatives graduate here. We recommend a 93, 7 deductions, and they send that with all the deductions to us. Our evaluators look at that test, they go over those deductions, they agree or disagree, and here's what's so beautiful, you guys. This is where the instructor gets better. If the instructor said minus 7, 93, and we say minus 10, 90. Think about that. The 3 additional deductions that we made that the instructor did not denote in their submission of that student's test are what? Those are indicators that the instructor did not recognize those errors in the student's performance. So when the instructor sees 3 additional deductions that they didn't recognize, what does that do for their teaching next time around? They're going to go back to the videos, the source material, they're going to watch, come to Torrance, do some classes, whatever their source of instruction is, they're going to go back, they're going to sharpen that sword, and then they're going to teach it better the next time because they got the deduction notes from us on their own performance. And that's the beauty, you guys. And that's how we know that what's being taught at CTCs around the world isn't just identical to what's being taught at headquarters, but it gets better over time because of the closed circle feedback mechanisms in place to make sure that every student is assessed from the CTC and from headquarters to then say, okay, what can we do better to teach the next student even better? So over time, our instructors at CTCs, even blue belts, they don't get watered down. They get watered up because the cycle makes them better every single time. And this is happening, you guys, all over the world, this type of growth. And we know it because it's been 10 years. We're at 170 certified training centers in 10 years. And they're killing it all over the world. Blue belts, purple belts, brown belts, black belts. And we have some that started as blue and are now purple, brown, and black. And they're climbing through the ladder and they're doing exceptional work. So let's take a little ride here to Seoul, South Korea. If you click on Seoul on our website, Gracie University, it takes you to a sub-site. Every CTC have what's called a sub-site on our website. So if you go to gracieuniversity.com/soul, it's your own website within the website. And on your CTC subsite, right, you have everything. Class overview, you have the instructors, photo, bios of the instructors there. You have a video tour of your school. You can show welcome video so they get to know you through Gracie University, right? They're allowed to have their own website, but this is on GU to make sure you get the maximum amount of traffic as a CTC. And then you have your class schedule. If you click on the class schedule, you can download the PDF of the class schedule in Seoul, South Korea, from anywhere in the world. So all the schedules, Women Empowered, Bully Proof, here's their Gracie Combative schedule in Korean, you guys. I love this. Right here, it's all Korean text. They teach in English, by the way. They teach the techniques in Korea in English so that students learn English and they learn the names of the Gracie Combative techniques. But this text on the page down here is in Korean, which I love. Jason Park runs a school out there, does an amazing job. Now let me tell you something right now about the level of consistency at CTCs around the world. Not just Torrance, but every single CTC. This is how precise and specific it is. If I were to go to, Jason Park CTC, Seoul, South Korea, and participate in or go, and let's just say you told me what day of the month it was. I said, okay, it's the 20th of June. So it's going to be class number 5 at 7:30 p.m. I already know because it's on the calendar. Class number 5 is going to be punch block series and guillotine choke. I already know. Now here's what's wild. If you tell me, Henner, it's 7:30 in Seoul, South Korea, the class has begun, and you tell me what minute of the hour you're on. Let's say you're at 7:47. I can tell you exactly what slice is being taught at that school at that time. Because I know how the structure of one class is done through our Instructor Certification Program and how they learn teaching from A to Z and how to administer these programs. I know what is being taught on the hour at that moment in Seoul, South Korea. And if you tell me, Henner, or let's say I showed up to Korea in that class and it was 7:47 in class number 5 on 7:30 p.m. on the 20th of June. And I showed up in that class, and I walk in, and Jason is teaching, and all I need to hear is one sentence of Jason's articulation of the slice, of the technique, and I'll be able to tell him to stop. Jason, can you step out? I'll step in. And without repeating anything he's done in the entire class, I could finish the entire class. I could finish the entire class perfectly without knowing anything other than one sentence while he spoke. If I hear one sentence, I know where he is in the SPF, the slice presentation formula. And I could finish that class perfectly. I'd be speaking English, but luckily the Korean students speak Jiu-Jitsu, so we're straight. And at that point, we're good to go. Friends, not just me, any one of the 500 plus instructors we've certified all over the world could step in for Jason Park and do the exact same thing. Even the blue belts could do this in the structure that we have. So this is what I'm talking about in terms of instructor certification and sharing it with the world and structuring it. That was the most important thing. Now, here's some case studies of some instructors who've made incredible progress and have joined the thing in all different backgrounds. Here we have Robbie Singh, was a black belt before he joined, was with a different jiu-jitsu affiliation, and as a black belt, successful, great athletic, talented jiu-jitsu practitioner, he was always hovering around 120, 125 students at his original school. So there's Robbie sitting with some kids. This is his original school. He did the ICP with us, finished the ICP, came out of, this is him here at the ICP with us, opened his new school, had to change locations because in under 3 years, Robbie went from 125 to 650 students. He's now one of the largest schools, if not the largest school in all of Australia. Robbie does an incredible job down there, runs the systems perfectly. Now what I'm trying to point out here is Robbie's belt color did not change in the onboarding. He didn't go from, right, he wasn't a blue belt and then got a black belt. He was a black belt and was still a black belt when he was done. The only thing that changed was the operating system Robbie was running on, which took him from 125 floating to 650. Now Robbie's one of my best buds now, comes down all the time, he's here all the time. Almost like he lives in the mat here. Comes to Torrance all the time from Australia, so dedicated. And Robbie confessed, he said, Henner, you know what? I have to tell you something. Before we did the ICP, we had heard about it, people talk about it in the affiliation. We knocked it off. Instead of doing Gracie Combatives, we called it Street Combatives, our program. And instead of 36 techniques, we had 38. And this is before, 100%, on the red mats I showed you. He said, here's what's crazy, Henner. It didn't work. Now that he's done this, he only confessed way after the fact. He said, we knocked it off. We did the identical. Instead of women empowered, they did street smarts for women, right? So we knocked him off, tried to do the same, run like a dog, walk like a dog. It just didn't work. And then he came to the ICP, and then several years, 3 years, 650 students, he said, Henner, now I know why it didn't work, because what you're providing us isn't just a number of techniques and a cool name. It's everything you need to be successful to run that program at your school. And we're going to talk about many of those things going forward. But I just thought it was cool that he confessed later. I love that. He was like, Henner, I tried, I knocked it off, but it didn't work. And he could do that because we're now incredible friends. Then you have Carlos Leal, Taekwondo master, Southern California. I'm talking high level. Did the ICP and fell in love with Jiu-Jitsu after, of course, completing combatives. Did the ICP, started teaching Taekwondo and karate, or Taekwondo and Jiu-Jitsu together. And then what happened is Jiu-Jitsu was so successful that it took over his school, and now it's 100% Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. His Taekwondo sign isn't there. It's a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu sign right now. In his case, he was a traditional martial artist, thought, man, I got to dabble in this Jiu-Jitsu stuff. He started messing with it. He actually trained a lot online, but also did some private classes early on here in Torrance. He would make the drive and do some private classes with Brian Ortega, was his instructor actually. And they did the privates and they did back and forth. He developed, completed combatives, went in, master cycle, got his blue belt, did the ICP. You guys, went back, started teaching both programs. Jiu-Jitsu just took over. Not only did it take over in terms of the popularity of the classes, it took over in his passion. And this is, it's not a requirement, by the way. It's just the reality, and I wanted to point that out. It took over in what he wanted to spend his time teaching, because he also has a full-time job. He works 9 to 5 as, I think, an engineer, electrical engineer of some sort. So he has a full-time day job, and then at night he has his Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Certified Training Center here in Southern California. So it took over. So he's like, I want to teach Jiu-Jitsu full-time now, change his sign, and now it's Gracie Jiu-Jitsu 100%. So, and his daughter is also an amazing certified instructor. Selenia started as a blue belt. She's now a brown belt. They're all amazing, you guys. So another example, Johnny Vasquez, Jiu-Jitsu dreamer at job, loving Jiu-Jitsu, started in his Gracie garage after Gracie University Online, got a bunch of training partners, did the ICP, fell in love with the programs, opened his first CTC, a tiny little school, 75 students in 6 months, had to move twice within 3 years, 3 separate locations over 3 years. 350 students surpassed in 3 years. 350 students on Jiu-Jitsu. None of them right now because no one's training because we're closed, everybody's closed. But 350 students, active students, as a blue belt in Jiu-Jitsu. And what's crazy about Johnny's situation is this, because a lot of haters will come at this point and say, yeah, people train with the blue belt, it must be because the Gracie name. It must be because this marketing. It must be because Henner talk loud. It must be because they're oblivious to what it's like to train with the black belt. I'm talking to you guys, and I know you're watching right now too. Listen, Johnny is in a city, Apple Valley, California, that has no shortage of black belts and UFC gyms and other places where there are high-level jiu-jitsu within 5, 10, 15 miles. So everyone who trains at Johnny's school has a choice. And they don't train at these other schools, not because they're oblivious, but because what they get from Johnny, Gracie Combatives, Gracie Bullyproof, and the programs is exactly what they expect, what they dreamt, except it exceeds all their expectations in Jiu-Jitsu. And what's crazy is many of the students had trained in other schools, had negative experiences, and then ended up in Johnny's school. Many of them, he told me stories about. So it's not just the oblivious who are training with blue and purple belts and brown and black belts, right? It's not just the oblivious who are going to certified training centers. It's people who want to train jiu-jitsu that is street self-defense, at least first and foremost, and structured in a way where they can own the journey and not feel like it's just this, tiger pit lion for survival of the fittest. That's not what they want, you guys. And the people are speaking loud and clear at CTCs all over the world. So these are just some examples, but we can keep going, but we got to wrap this up at some point, but we got to get into the business talk. Once we had so many successful CTCs from blue to black belt, killing it, hundreds of students, right? An average black belt BJJ school might have, 120. We saw Robbie, 120, 130. If you have 200, you're a big BJJ school. No, CTCs with blue belts are 200, 300, 400 and more. This is happening all over the world, you guys. Now, depending on the territory, depending where they're at, it's not every single one, but they're happening because the systems work and the instructors and the teaching methodologies are scalable. So once we knew we had this system of creating schools and creating instructors so dialed in, with the quality maintained so high, it was time to sell it to the world.